Shadow Hack. Chapter 211, Tyrannical Body. Li Yunmu had never expected that refining the drop of divine blood would result in such a great transformation which would greatly increase his strength. The Great Sun Tyrant Body Muscle Marrow Secrets, this purely body refining technique, had advanced from the 10th level directly to the 30th level. As for the Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets, it had risen to the 20th level. In an instant, Li Yunmu felt as if he had transformed into Panga One and could split the heaven and earth apart just by relying on the formidable strength of his physical body. Naturally, this was just an illusion born from the sudden increase in his body's strength. It was just too excessive. After faintly inspecting his own insides, Li Yunmu discovered that unknowingly he had started using the legendary inner vision. With it, he saw that a qualitative change had happened to his Devil Dragon Bone armor because of that drop of blood essence. If it was previously only a set of tough and durable bone armor which firmly protected his inner organs, then presently it had transformed entirely. It was no longer rigid, instead having become somewhat flexible and stretchable. He could extend and pull it back as he wished. Its surface was also filled with tiny golden specks which appeared as golden runes at first glance. The transformation wasn't limited to the Devil Dragon Bone armor on the chest, but extended to all the bones in Li Yunmu's body. He suddenly had a thought and stretched out his arm. After some thinking, he moved his arm again and twisted it in a way which didn't conform with the conventional movement of the human body. And he wasn't done yet. He continued to twist it until he had turned it by 360 degrees, but he didn't feel any pressure and was able to accomplish it rather easily. With another thought, all the bones in his body returned to their normal hardness, and he launched a punch in the air. Bang! There was an explosion, one that sounded like a tire of a heavy vehicle had suddenly burst. The terrifying force of Li Yunmu's bones immediately rang in the air. Extremely formidable. Li Yunmu didn't dare to believe it. He stamped his feet heavily on the ground, which instantly caused an explosion as if he had stepped on a landmine buried there. But by this time, Li Yunmu had already moved from the location where he had stamped his foot. His figure appeared near the end point of his heavenly world's land. Within an instant, he had covered more than 300 meters just by relying on the power of his flesh. He could now be certainly considered as a human-shaped monster. One drop of divine blood, how can it be so formidable? Li Yunmu was extremely astonished. It must be known that regardless of whether it was Li Qinghong or any other person whom Li Yunmu had heard about who had consumed divine blood, none of them could display such terrifyingly explosive power with just their bodies. It was truly a great achievement. Host does not need to find it strange. Divine blood contains innately formidable divine blood genes. Although you haven't used it to refine your blood vessels, you possess a supreme body refining technique and top-notch bone refining ability, thus the refining effects of this drop of blood have been used the extreme the system explained on time. Oh, so this was the case. Li Yunmu was no longer able to calculate how much more formidable his flesh had become compared to how it was previously. He could sense that he no longer needed to use any external energy to blow away the so-called most formidable rainbow crystal fluxers. The explosive power of his flesh alone would be enough for that. This wasn't an illusion but his true power which had reached a terrifying level after the two cultivation methods had advanced dramatically. There was also an even more domineering fact that he had yet to address. His cultivation of AB grade skill copper body secrets had been completely abolished because of the great increase in the strength of his flesh. It didn't matter, though. Regardless of whether it was the Great Sun Tyrant Body Muscle Marrow Secrets or the refining of divine blood, his flesh had already become extremely domineering. Once Tyrant Body attained the minor threshold, it couldn't coexist with other similar body refining techniques. Frankly speaking, Copper Body Secrets was a metal transformation defensive cultivation method and not a genuine cultivation method to strengthen one's flesh. That's why its cultivation had been completely crushed by Tyrant Body. However, Li Yunmu didn't feel the slightest bit of regret, because the fierceness of his Tyrant Body certified the dominance of his Great Sun Tyrant Body Muscle Marrow Secrets. He barely thought about it, and his body turned completely red, resembling a red-hot iron. This was the pinnacle form of tyrant body. The projection of a scorching sun appeared behind him, gently rising up. Due to the light from the sun, the redness of his body began to darken. The transformation of the essence of energy caused a red protective cover to form around him. At this moment, an extremely intense feeling rose from deep within Li Yunmu. He sensed that as long as he stood under the great sun, the layer of tyrant body protective cover would never dissipate because of lack of energy. As long as the great sun remained over his head, then even if this layer of tyrant body protective cover was forcefully destroyed, it would form again and again. But this transformation wasn't so simple. The most important benefit of the tyrant body attaining minor threshold wasn't the protective cover but the tyrannical attribute itself. It wouldn't be the slightest exaggeration to say that once Li Yunmu entered the pinnacle of tyrant body, his flesh would become incomparably powerful. Presently, he could block an artillery shell just by relying on his flesh, without needing any other defense, let alone some bullets. Although he hadn't yet entered the Flux Master realm, his flesh had already crossed the Flux Disciple realm. System: calculate the comprehensive strength of my physical body by doing an in-depth analysis. Li Yunmu's heart was burning passionately, and he immediately ordered the system to calculate the increase in his combat strength. Analysis complete. Without including the power of shadows, Host's current combat strength is roughly equivalent to that of an 8 Rainbow Light Devil King, the system quickly replied. What if the 4 shadows were also included in the calculations? Li Yunmu asked. Then you can easily crush a 12 Rainbow Light King and battle evenly against an average Flux Master. Whoa! Li Yunmu was completely astonished, to the extent that he turned speechless. If the synchronized strength of the 4 shadows was included in the calculations, then his combat strength was sufficient to battle against an ordinary Flux Master? This wasn't as simple as battling those who were a few layers higher than you, for this kind of strength genuinely surpassed a whole realm. With the 4 shadows joining hands with him and the strength of the world power as well as his flesh, he now possessed the qualifications to battle opponents who were a whole realm higher. As for how large was the disparity between Flux Masters and Flux Disciples, if someone asked this question on one of the Fluxers online platforms, then probably 99.99% of the replies would be that it was incalculable. The two simply belonged to completely different realms. It was common knowledge that even if the most formidable Flux Disciple encountered a random Flux Master, they would be crushed with a flick of a finger. However, Li Yunmu now stepped out of the boundaries of this common knowledge. With the many advantages which were exclusive to him, he became unlike anyone else. Then what is the difference of strength between me and the most powerful Flux Disciples? Li Yunmu asked, looking for another comparison. There weren't many names who could hold the title of one of the world's most powerful Flux Disciples. Zhanbei was certainly one of such people, though, because he was publicly acknowledged as the most powerful halted Fluxer. Chapter 212, Mist Fiend's Descent. Li Yunmu decided that he had to continue to gain strength until he became the most powerful and attained enough power to blow away all the pinnacle Fluxers. He then took out the special dimensional box. This wasn't just an ordinary dimensional box, but a special one which had dropped from the 8 Rainbow Light Devil King after it was killed by Li Yunmai in the King's true territory. According to the system's previous criteria, this special dimensional box should drop only from 12 Rainbow Light Kings. But it had still unexpectedly dropped back then. The system explained that since it was Li Yunmai's first time killing a Devil King which had swallowed divine blood and his first time encountering an extremely formidable monster, the probability of the special dimensional box dropping had increased greatly. Li Yunmu was full of expectations. When a special dimensional box had dropped last time, he had obtained the 7th dimension's Shadow Clan female ancestors' seeds. Then this time, what sort of unknown treasure would he obtain? One thing was certain, though, the item would extremely high grade, because it would come from the special dimensional box which had even lower drop rate than an ordinary dimensional box. Open. Li Yunmu opened it while immersed in his daydreams. Given the trouble he had gone through to obtain this box, if he could obtain another little female ancestor, that would be awesome. Once that happened, he would have another sage-level powerhouse by his side at all times. Moments later, golden light spread out everywhere from the box. Li Yunmu's heart began to pound fiercely, and he couldn't help but take a peek inside. There was a red egg with dark red patterns on it. Congratulations, host! You have obtained an egg of an 8 Rainbow Light Devil King who has swallowed divine blood. The system's voice promptly congratulated him. S.H.A.D.O.W, your mother, this time I obtained what I killed. Li Yunmu's mood sank. 8 Rainbow Light Devil King's egg? Devil King class dimensional beasts were naturally formidable. Without a group of 8 or 10 rainbow crystal fluxers, it would be impossible to kill it, let alone one that had swallowed divine blood. But this was just one kind of a comparison. How could an 8 Rainbow Light Devil King, even if it had swallowed divine blood, compare to Shadow female ancestor from the 7th dimension? There was basically no comparison to be made between them. After all, the Devil King was only a monster whose strength was at Flux Disciple grade. Li Yunmu felt disappointed. The greater the expectations, the larger the disappointment. Host need not feel disappointed. In some aspects, this divine blood-possessing Devil King's egg doesn't lack potential in the slightest when compared to Shadow female ancestor. And in terms of providing practical assistance, it can even surpass her. The system comforted him. You're saying that it can advance past Flux Disciple layer and mature to enter the Sage layer? Li Yunmu asked unenthusiastically. Yes, this Devil King's egg possesses the bloodline of the divine blood. This can be seen as it having infinite potential. As long as host constantly upgrades its divine bloodline, it will grow in strength, the system explained. Li Yunmu's mood became slightly better. After some thought, he found that it was quite true, a special dimensional box wouldn't drop just a Flux Disciple class monster's egg. Since it had the qualifications to be placed within the special dimensional box, then it naturally wouldn't be weak. Li Yunmu's excitement then instantly reached the peak, and he asked, what do I need to do to hatch it? Simple, host needs to drop blood essence on it and bind it with a contract. You must make sure that when it comes out of the shell, the first being it sees will be you, then it will consider you as his master. Good. Li Yunmu breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it wasn't like Shadow female ancestor, which required a formidable medium to display its strength. Otherwise Li Yunmu would have had a great headache. Just on the basis of this one characteristic, this divine Devil King level monster's egg was indeed inferior to the elegant little female ancestor. But it was just that the little female ancestor which had appeared from the first special dimensional box was extremely high level. Li Yunmu took out his knife and tried to cut his finger. Since he didn't wanted to cut it off entirely, he only used 20% of his strength. Yet he wasn't able to open even a small wound. This stunned Li Yunmu. The strength of his flesh had already reached this stage. This small knife that he was using was a C-grade weapon which was created from a special type of alloy and not some kitchen knife used by ordinary people. Host's tyrant body has already attained the minor threshold. So even if you don't unleash it, ordinary blades will still be unable to cut your skin, the system explained. Only now did Li Yunmu completely understand how formidable his flesh had become after the tyrant body attained the minor threshold. His current cultivation of Great Sun Tyrant Body Muscle Marrow Secrets had reached the 30th level, and according to his understanding, this skill had 100 levels. If he could attain the major threshold at the 60th level, then how terrifying would his flesh become? Li Yunmu's excitement towards gathering 6 transcending weapons instantly increased. Perhaps the Sun God Flame killing spell of Chao Tian sect could still assist in increasing the speed of his Great Sun Tyrant Muscle Marrow Secrets advancement. Li Yunmu took out a B-grade weapon and used roughly 70% of his strength and was finally able to cut a shallow wound on his finger. He then poured several drops of blood essence on the egg. The next instant, the shell ruptured and an 8-rainbow light Devil King whose skin was filled with red and black stripes intertwining with each other immediately tore itself out of the egg with extremely formidable might. Sure enough, this monster was from the same race as the Devil King Li Yunmu had killed previously. The system assessed it to be a Devil King class monster who possessed divine blood. Its race was called Mist Fiend. Mist Fiend. Li Yunmu mulled for a moment, but couldn't recall seeing any information about this race in the Book of Monsters. No wonder the Devil King had almost taken his life previously. This Devil King race wasn't a weak one to begin with, and after one of its people had swallowed divine blood, it would become even more formidable. And as it happened, Li Yunmu now possessed one such hatchling. System, what are the requirements to increase its strength? Although the Devil King in front of him was emitting 8 rainbow lights while the golden color of divine blood flashed across its skin, and it possessed 2 devilish wings on its back as well as a terrifying presence, it was extremely small. It was barely 10 centimeters tall, which made it clear that it had been born recently. Chapter 213, Vega City. Mist Fiend Devil race is extremely greedy by nature and fond of eating. They love to eat the flesh of formidable beings. The more formidable is the being they devour, the faster they mature and the more powerful they become. Among Devil King class monsters, they are an extremely rarely seen powerful race. According to legends, they possess a hint of Devil God class life forms bloodline. But the Mist Fiend race was found to have vanished during humanity's explorations long ago and is considered to have gone extinct. The system poured out all the information within Li Yunmu's mind. It was an introduction to Mist Fiends. Li Yunmu understood that this was certainly obtained from the little information available on the forums online, since not even the Book of Monsters contained such detailed information. This race was actually included on the list of extinct races. When Li Yunmu carefully rethought what he had heard, he decided that the reason behind Mist Fiends being so formidable was really because they harbored a hint of Devil God's bloodline. How can I evolve its Devil God bloodline to the next stage? Li Yunmu asked. The system had only explained how to make it more formidable, but hadn't explained anything about the evolution of its bloodline. With divine blood, supply it with a large amount of deity descendant monsters' flesh to eat, which will increase the purity of its deity blood's bloodline. After the purity attains a certain stage, the pair of devilish wings on its back will evolve. If host will be able to offer even more divine blood, as well as provide it with a darkness attribute body tempering technique, then its bloodline will evolve at an even faster speed. Once its bloodline matures, 12 devilish wings will appear on its back. The extent of its potential will then be at quasi-deity stage. What the F***? There were great benefits. It only possessed a pair of devilish wings now, but it was already quite formidable. If the pair of devilish wings evolved into 12 devilish wings, then the little Devil King would ascend straight to the quasi-deity stage. All quasi-deity stage monsters were equivalent to battle sages, these men who were considered flawless and seen as half-deity. The quasi-deities were one step away from becoming a deity. The only difference between battle sages and quasi-deities was that the former was a classification for humans while the latter for monsters. Li Yunmu understood what he needed to do now. If he wanted his Mist Fiend Devil King to evolve and mature, then he had to supply it with the blood and flesh of formidable beings. The purer supplied deity bloodline was, the faster the evolution. In any case, the Devil King only needed to do one thing: eat, eat, and eat. It was no wonder then that it was described as greedy by nature. After all, if any Mist Fiend wanted to grow in maturity, it only had to eat to evolve. Li Yunmu swiftly decided that possessing this kind of monster wasn't so bad. It had great potential, and it was apparently the only type of devil-class monster which could fly through the skies. But it mattered little now. Li Yunmu was off to challenge the tower now. Within half a day, his strength had greatly increased. His world power had become even more formidable, his flesh had become even more tyrannical, and his bones had become even more dense. His tyrant body had also attained the minor threshold. He was certain, to an extent, about being able to accomplish his task. He instantly discarded all his hesitation and exited the heavenly world, then bid farewell to Lin Jian and the others for the time being. He then flew out of Moro Mountain Tenebrous hidden domain by himself. In a short while, he was back in the outside world. This time, he had transferred to Vega City, which was also a capital city like Heavenly Cloud City. Both of them were classified as secondary cities. Under the control of Vega City, there were altogether 173 small cities, thus its territory was larger than that of Heavenly Cloud City. But the distance between the two was around 7,000 kilometers. If Heavenly Cloud City was situated at the most northern corner of Central Continent, then Vega City was situated at the most western corner. According to legends, this city was named after a female battle sage. At the age of 20 years, she was a completely ordinary person and didn't have any hope of awakening. There were no Fluxers within her family. She had lived a completely ordinary life during those years, weaving being her profession. When she was 23 years old, while collecting some silkworms on a deserted mountain, she had a fortuitous encounter. Her life completely changed after it, and she quickly rose towards the pinnacle. Due to her astonishing battle prowess, she became a battle sage before 30 years of age. This sort of fortuitous encounter sounded like a legend which everyone yearned for. Li Yunmu had also heard many stories about this female battle sage. Although she had started out late, her process of becoming a battle sage wasn't the least bit slow. She had reportedly resided in the central city and was known as one of the supporting pillars of the central continent. After becoming a battle sage, she hadn't followed others and cultivated in seclusion or adventured. She also didn't establish any sect but instead threw herself into repaying the central continent, becoming a defender battle goddess, which was a relatively high position. Within the central continent, her combat strength was only inferior to battle god and sword sage, making her the third most formidable battle sage of the central continent. Once Li Yunmu set foot in Vega City, he saw a several hundred-meter tall bronze statue. The pressure in its pair of swift and gentle eyes couldn't be concealed even if this was just a monument. According to legends, the female battle sage had left a mental imprint on this bronze statue. All the citizens living in the territory of Vega City received her protection. Due to this, the city was considered as a relatively safe region, which attracted countless people. The reason why Li Yunmu had chosen to transfer to such a distant part was clearly to avoid the attention of Heavenly Cloud City's Fluxer Guild. Moreover, he had become more cunning by now and at the transfer point used a Fluxer badge snatched from some random Fluxer. Thus, he wasn't anxious that his whereabouts would be discovered. Besides, after the four shadows had spent the past few days hacking in the dimensional battlefield, he had earned sufficient space elements to utilize the sage-level power of little female ancestor. But then something happened, and he couldn't tell if it was just an illusion or real. When he just transferred to Vega City and looked toward the enormous statue of the female battle sage, he suddenly felt as if both of its eyes came to life and were now looking at him from above. In an instant, Li Yunmu became frightened. His whole person seemed to have become dull, and he didn't dare to make any movements. His 6th level reaction skill wasn't mistaken, he was surprisingly being watched by the female battle goddess statue. Oh my god, a miracle! My god, who is this person? He has caught the attention of the female battle sage. When the eyes of the enormous statue of the female battle goddess seemingly came to life and turned to Li Yunmu, it instantly startled all the people within Vega City's transfer plaza. A golden crystal fluxer had surprisingly alarmed a quasi-deity level female battle sage. If this wasn't a miracle, then what was? It must be known that this statue hadn't come alive for a long time. The last time this happened was 7 years ago when the city was being attacked by monsters. However, what happened next increased the astonishment of people by multiple folds. The transfer point under the foot of the female battle sage was suddenly illuminated, and within a split second, a group of female warriors came towards Li Yunmu from the transfer point. The official leading them sweetly said, "Azure Dragon, our family's master wishes to meet you." Chapter 214, Matching Goals. Your lordship Azure Dragon, our master has requested to meet you, the leading woman said with a sweet smile. Who is your master? Exactly the one you're thinking about, the woman amicably answered. She wasn't that old, around 35. As for her strength, it was deep and immeasurable. She had probably already entered the nirvana layer. A person possessing this sort of strength would be considered as a formidable expert regardless of wherever they went, however this woman had still chosen to follow someone else. As for the master she was talking about, there couldn't be many people who deserved to be called such. In this world, those who were capable of converting experts one step away from entering the sage layer into their willing followers weren't numerous. There wasn't any entity apart from a battle sage who could pull this off. Li Yunmu didn't expect that even after he chose the transfer point several thousand miles away, in Vega City, to avoid being detected by that lower domain sage of Heavenly Cloud City's Fluxer Guild, he would still attract the gaze of a half-deity on himself. However, he breathed a sigh of relief when he heard the woman's words. He was clear that if the person inviting him was the female battle sage, then he wasn't in any danger. He certainly didn't have anything which a majestic defender goddess of the central continent would covet. As for the Pisces jade pendant, he was convinced that a battle sage, especially one who was serving the central continent, would have already found out that it wasn't in his possession. Besides, given the enormous foundation which the female battle sage had built for herself, the key to the deity's secret region might not even be worth her attention. She stood at the pinnacle of the continent, and people who had attained this level looked at objects with eyes which were greatly different from those of ordinary sages. Li Yunmu quickly weighed his options, and then nodded in agreement. He quickly followed after the squad of female warriors toward the transfer point. Her ladyship Vega requested to meet with this person. Who is he? Many people were startled. Fluxers were even more startled compared to ordinary people, because a Flux disciple who had forced a battle sage to pay attention to him would really be extraordinary. However, Li Yunmu was covered by his golden crystal Flux armor from head to toe, so no one was able to recognize him. Your ladyship, I have brought Li Yunmu. Before a lot of time passed, the woman led Li Yunmu into a hall and respectfully reported to her master. Li Yunmu's heart began to thump loudly. This was the first time he was looking at a pinnacle existence in the hierarchy of the human society. He slowly raised his head to take a look, and his heart filled with shock. He couldn't see the genuine appearance of the legendary person before him, because she adorned a battle suit which covered her entire body while emitting gentle but extremely bright flames. Li Yunmu pays his respect to her ladyship Vega. Facing a battle sage, Li Yunmu promptly kowtowed. She was a supreme powerhouse, the defender goddess of the central continent. She hadn't established an independent sect like other battle sages, and neither had she taken the path to cultivate in seclusion, only staying true to her principles. This was true selflessness which commanded reverence. Li Yunmu was filled with extreme admiration, and he wasn't the only one. Every person in the central continent was filled with incomparable respect toward this goddess. Without her protection, central continent probably wouldn't be so peaceful and secure. Li Yunmu hadn't expected that the day when he would lay his eyes on the legendary defender goddess would come so quickly, and even less that she would be the one who would personally invite him. You really don't possess battle sage blood, which is unexpected. Although Li Yunmu couldn't see the genuine appearance of this cordial female battle sage, but he could hear her voice and it was very gentle. She seemed quite young from her voice, but Li Yunmu was aware that from the time she had become a battle sage, 13 years had passed with her defending the central continent. In other words, battle sage Vega should be 41. However, since she was a battle sage, her appearance and body would remain the same as it was when she was 28 years old. This junior was only an ordinary person, but because of a fortuitous encounter he gained some success. Li Yunmu paused for a moment, then asked with some hesitation, I wonder how did your ladyship discover my hidden identity? Although battle sages had all sorts of powers and abilities, that still didn't explain how the other party had instantly discovered him just by relying on an imprint left on a statue. Even battle sages shouldn't possess this sort of terrifying ability. There is a protection of a sage-level power on you. When you entered Vega City, this kind of power alerted me. Li Yunmu startled upon hearing this, and was left completely speechless. It was the presence of the little female ancestor which caught the attention of her ladyship Vega. Although the little female ancestor moved in the void between two planes, where even battle sages couldn't sense her existence, she would usually stay by Li Yunmu's side, affecting him with her presence. Flux sages were considered to be extremely sensitive, let alone battle sages who were considered to be equal to quasi-deities. Battle sage Vega laughed faintly. Fortunately, you, Azure Dragon, came here yourself, for I have some matters in which I need your assistance. I was originally thinking of sending someone to the fifth dimension to ask for your assistance, so encountering you here can be considered some kind of karma. Your ladyship, you only need to say once. However, I am afraid that this Li Yunmu may not be qualified of your trust, since my strength is currently quite trivial. Li Yunmu was surprised on hearing the goddess's words. What kind of matter would require battle sage Vega to seek Li Yunmu's assistance? I have two tasks for you. The first one is to snatch the refining pagoda from the hands of H.A.C.K. Second one is to obtain the qualifications for the continental battle. The transfer point in the Vega City's plaza lit up again, and Li Yunmu walked out of it. His mind was still in a daze. He hadn't expected that the two tasks which battle sage Vega needed him to accomplish would be same as ones he was aiming for himself. The first task was to snatch the refining pagoda before it fell into the hands of H.A.C.K, yet the formidable battle sage Vega hadn't expected that this had actually been the aim of his return. He took the risk of coming back to Earth just to accomplish this. His motive was to simply bring harm to H.A.C, even if he wouldn't achieve any great benefit for himself. He hadn't hesitated to take any risk just to obtain the refining pagoda before Yeching of H.A.C. This sort of exchange couldn't be considered by a normal Flux disciple, but being the stubborn person that he was, Li Yunmu didn't want H.A.C to obtain 6 transcending sage weapons. That powerful enemy of his would then become the 7th transcending power in the 6 continents, and he would face many problems in the future. Battle Sage Vega had the same idea as him, but her aim was completely different. She was more concerned about the general situation of the central continent. The Holy Spirit continent already had one transcending power, heavenly divine religion. If the ambitious H.A.C attained the status of a transcending power, then it would create difficulties for the whole central continent. As for the second task, to participate in the continental battle, this instantly caught Li Yunmu's attention. He had heard of the continental battle previously, but he hadn't known what sort of benefits one would obtain from it. He also hadn't understood why were there qualifications to enter arranged by the 6 continents. But he would have accomplished this second task anyway. It was mentioned in the letter of invitation from War God Temple that he must obtain the minimum qualifications needed to participate in the continental battle. Because of all this, Li Yunmu was in a daze. Both tasks entrusted to him by Battle Sage Vega were actually something he would have needed to accomplish anyway. As for the reward, Battle Sage Vega had right away handed him a treasure, one that even the system wouldn't be able to decline, let alone Li Yunmu himself. Chapter 215, Striving for the Peak. The reason why neither Li Yunmu nor the system could refuse this object was because it was the core component of Azure Dragon Deity Suit Azure Dragon Pearl. Among the 5 components of the battle suit, it was the most important one. If Azure Dragon Gauntlets formed the armor for the arm, then Azure Dragon Pearl was the source of the killing energy supplied by the Azure Dragon battle suit. It was extremely important. Battle Sage Vega's move was too ruthless. Li Yunmu simply couldn't refuse and agreed without hesitation. Who would have known that Azure Dragon Pearl was actually in the hands of Battle Sage Vega? Based on what she did with it, she clearly knew that Li Yunmu had obtained the Azure Dragon Gauntlets. Thus, he didn't say anything unnecessary and agreed right away. Her 2 tasks went along with his current aims, and he would also obtain a component of the Supreme Battle Suit if he did as she told, so why should he hesitate? System, why do you think Battle Sage Vega gave me the Azure Dragon Pearl? He asked once he returned to Vega City. Even Sage-level powerhouses were trying to find this Azure Dragon Pearl zealously, yet Battle Sage Vega had handed it to Li Yunmu without much hesitation. Because of this, he now had two components of Azure Dragon deity suit in his hands. Two possibilities emerge in objective analysis. First, she was afraid that you didn't possess enough strength and would fail to accomplish the two tasks entrusted by her, so she gifted you the Azure Dragon Pearl to allow you to unleash the deadly power of Azure Dragon Gauntlets, the system said, after a moment of silence. There is this possibility, but that wouldn't explain how could she gift a precious treasure like this to me so easily. That may be because of the second possibility. She wants to nurture you, so when you become powerful enough, you will become a Battle Sage level powerhouse of the Central Continent. From the system's second option, cold sweat broke out on Li Yunmu's back. He felt that the system was just babbling nonsense. Given that we don't have all the information, there is still a third unexpected possibility, the system added. What unexpected possibility? Given the importance of continental battle and disrupting S.H.A.D.O.W's plan to obtain 6 transcending sage tools, it is highly possible that she decided that Central Continent is more important than the Azure Dragon Pearl. The system indifferently voiced its third conjecture. However, because it didn't have sufficient information, it couldn't provide a certain answer. This was only a speculation. Yet Li Yunmu's sixth sense told him that this third possibility was perhaps the most realistic one as to why Battle Sage Vega would gift the Azure Dragon Pearl to him. He had no proof or assured information, though, this was just his intuition. Battle Sage Vega was chasing after the dual-star Supreme Battlesuit, and Northern Continent's frontline god was in possession of 2 components of the Azure Dragon deity suit, thus the Azure Dragon Pearl could be said to be useless for her. That's why, if she could get 2 important tasks, which would impact the situation of the whole Central Continent, accomplished by gifting it to Li Yunmu, that would be more meaningful. After mulling for a bit, Li Yunmu understood that there were only these 3 possibilities which might have been the reason behind why Battle Sage Vega gifted him the Azure Dragon Pearl. Other than them, there could be no other possibilities. Li Yunmu simply didn't believe that the other party possessed this sort of benevolence. Her intent could be simple or complex, but that action simply couldn't be just for his benefit. After having a meeting with Battle Sage Vega, Li Yunmu wasn't afraid that he would be attacked within Vega City, so he quickly went to the Fluxer Association and once again entered the heavenly world of Flux Ancestor. He silently entered the Tower of Glory. At this instant, on the Holy Spirit continent, S.H.A.D.O.W announced to the world that its main peak's elite disciple H.A.C.K will challenge the tower tomorrow. Within a short while, H.A.C.K's fame had shot up because of S.H.A.D.O.W's boosting. All the Fluxers in the 6 continents began to guess how likely he was to actually clear the 70th level. After all, in the past 2 years, no Fluxer had been able to clear the 70th level. Given how public S.H.A.D.O.W is about it, I think H.A.C.K will certainly accomplish it. Since S.H.A.D.O.W has nurtured him secretly and entrusted all of its secret trump cards to him, the 70th level should be smashed by him. The majority of Fluxers mostly held this kind of opinion. Haha, S.H.A.D.O.W's plan is very good. At this stage, they're doing their utmost to boost H.A.C.K's fame, probably they have their eyes on the qualifications for the continental battle. In the depths of a vast ocean on the southern part, there was an enormous city on the ocean floor. Man Tian and the others had received Hai Yu's invitation and had come to take a tour of this enormous city on the floor of the ocean. Desolate Continent and Northern Continent were both filled with evolved humans. They always had good relations between each other, and the 5 people here represented the top young experts of both continents. At this moment, they had obtained the information regarding the recent activities of S.H.A.D.O.W on the Holy Spirit continent. One the gathered people, a youth whose entire body emitted cold and who had a green wolf imprinted on his forehead, spoke up with a sneer. He was called Green Wolf, which was obviously his nickname. This group of people made up of the most powerful of the Flux disciples on both continents naturally were aware of Yeching's true strength. Their thoughts ran in the same vein as Li Qinghong's, that this person had average personal strength but was bestowed enormous treasures by Chao Tian sect. However, when the group saw the unusual activities of Chao Tian sect, sparing no price in boosting his fame, Man Tian, Hai Yu, and the others felt that something was off. According to rumors, Yeching is the second great-grandson of Chao Tian sect's ancestor. However, even if there is a relation between them, the upper tiers couldn't be blinded to this degree. You all tell me, do you think Yeching still has some secret trump card which we don't know about? Hai Yu suddenly said. Yes, this possibility cannot be eliminated. We can underestimate Yeching, but we cannot underestimate an upper tier sect. Yeching must have some kind of secret which we don't know about. It's very like that. It's why Chao Tian sect is backing him so wholeheartedly in his attempts to obtain the qualifications for the continental battle. A woman with green eyes, which always seemed to be jumping around, said with a gloomy expression. That's okay. Your words may be correct, Hai Yu and Qing Yu. The number of competitors has increased by 1. But the continental battle is imminent. Vu, how many more of these monsters will come out now, said another person, which had a stature of a mountain, Zhuang Han. He was 3 meters tall, and his enormous stature was a rare sight even in desolate continent. I have a premonition that there will be great movement from the Holy Spirit continent, so Central Continent will have no choice but to defend. Given Zihan Bei's temper, he will certainly not represent Central Continent, even if he would be able to get an entry with his strength. However, they didn't need to worry about this person. Without the support of any power in any of the 6 continents, he wouldn't be able to advance too far by relying on just his own strength. Then the opponent from Central Continent will be Zhang Huia. A figure of a person suddenly flashed within Hai Yu's mind. Apart from Zhang Huia, there is one more person who can obtain the qualifications at the most crucial time. Are you talking about Li Yunmu? Others were astonished. It's possible. His strength hasn't yet reached the level of continental battle yet, but there is still a month left till it starts, she replied. There isn't a high possibility that he'll be able to catch up. The time since he started cultivating is too short. Others didn't attach too much importance to this matter. All of them felt that Hai Yu was being needlessly overcautious. I instead feel that there are 2 others from the Central Continent whom we should pay close attention to. Who? Ling Shuang and Xiekyungxiu. These 2 women are also impossible. They also haven't spent much time cultivating, just like Li Yunmu. It's impossible for them to build their foundation so quickly. No, the 2 of them are different from Li Yunmu. Both of them are disciples of battle sages. We mustn't forget about Devil, either. From the start, he has always been hiding. I'm thinking he is making some great plan. He didn't even hesitate to discard his own cultivation, so he probably wants to display the deadly power of Azure Dragon Leg Guards. Higher dimensional continents Blood Ewood, Northern continents Frontline Heaven, Divine Religion, probably all of them will send someone. This time, the qualifications for the continental battle have become of great importance. Everyone wants to seize an entry, so it's possible that even the transcending powers won't sit quietly and will show themselves. Chapter 216, Bestial Sage's Death. In the Palace Hall in Vega City, after all the female warriors had dispersed, the leader of the squad asked, Your Ladyship, this time you personally took action and also gifted the Azure Dragon Pearl to Li Yunmu. Can he really obtain an entry for the Central Continent? There have recently been some problems with War God Temple's Zhang Huia. I must create as many way outs for Central Continent as I can. The more of them there are, the better it will be for us. Li Yunmu had started from the beginning once more. Last time, he had removed up to the 50th level of seals on the underworld Raven Sage Bao and had relied on it as well as the 3 shadows who had the same level of strength as him to go up. On his path to the 28th level, he had obtained great harvests and had not only obtained the void disk but also a small batch of treasures by exhausting the tower badges he had earned. Since then, his cultivation base and his strength had increased, so he no longer needed to rely on the underworld ravens and could overcome the obstacles on his own. 70th level was very difficult to reach. But he was now a golden crystal flux disciple, and his great son tyrant body muscle marrow secrets had also reached a minor threshold, which made his flesh monstrously powerful. In addition to all these, he also had another basis for his confidence: the world power of his heavenly world had also risen greatly. On top of that, he now also had 2 parts of Azure Dragon deity suit. At the 29th level, there was a large group of silver crystal dimensional beasts, 50 golden crystal flux monsters, and 5 rainbow crystal monsters. But they were completely ineffective in front of Li Yunmu's formidable power. One person and 4 shadows completely crushed them by relying on just their physical strength. The little mist fiend Devil King acted as if it had been invited to a feast. It advanced forward and began to violently gobble down the corpses of high-level dimensional beasts. 1, 2, 3, 10, 30, 50, and it still continued to eat. Its small body was like a bottomless pit which couldn't be filled. The more it ate, the more its body increased. And it took only an hour to gobble down all the monster on that level. Li Yunmu discovered that the little Devil King's height had increased to 30 centimeters from the original then. He grew 3 times in size. This sort of growth was visible even to the naked eye. System, present what level of power it has reached, Li Yunmu said. Grade 32. Dang, so fierce. Power grade was the classification of monsters based on the compiled data. Every 10 grades represented a layer. Attaining 32nd grade meant that the Devil King's strength had increased by a grade since it had come out of its egg. The little Devil King had matured to a silver crystal monster in the wink of an eye. Furthermore, it was a mist fiend here who possessed the strength of silver crystal monsters. According to the system, it now had sufficient strength to kill a rainbow crystal layer ordinary beast with 1 claw attack. Fierce, too fierce. Li Yunmu advanced to the 30th level, which was another threshold. As he had determined in his previous time here, this level couldn't be cleared just by relying on a large number of underworld ravens, because a 4 rainbow light phantom king appeared as the final boss of this threshold level. Although it didn't possess divine blood, it was still a king-class dimensional beast. Yet even though it was extremely savage, Li Yunmu, whose strength had greatly increased from that time, was even more so. 1 punch which contained the full strength of his flesh, then another one, and one more, that was all. Li Yunmu glanced with disdain at the Phantom King he had killed with his physical strength alone. 30th level, cleared easily. But the drop rate of tower badges from this boss was pathetically low, because Li Yunmu had already stepped into the golden crystal layer. The mist fiend Devil King once again ate all the corpses, and its body grew in size. The little Devil King was digesting as fast as it was eating. After half an hour, its height had increased to half a meter. When it finished eating the corpse of the Phantom King, its height increased again, reaching 70 centimeters. The corpses of powerful monsters were really beneficial to it. Grade 46. After feasting on the corpses of this level, the Devil King possessed the strength of golden crystal monsters. Given its divine blood, it could easily beat a rainbow crystal fluxer, turning them into its food. At the 31st level, Li Yunmu didn't attack personally but pointed for the Devil King to advance. It charged forward with a loud howl. It had extremely fast attack and movement speed, a body which possessed profound defenses, and a pair of devilish wings, with which he could already fly at low altitude. Using its extremely fast attack speed, the Devil King clawed all the monsters of the 31st level to death, completely crushing them one after another. Li Yunmu was startled. This was the strength of an 8 rainbow light Devil King who had transformed because of divine blood? It still hadn't matured to the level of 8 rainbow light Devil King, but it could already go on a massacre in a group of rainbow crystal monsters. 31st level was finished quickly with only the Mist Fiend attacking. However, it wasn't like the little Devil King hadn't paid the price. Its whole body was full of injuries. More than 100 wounds, both large and small, covered its body, and one of its wings was broken. But soon, as the Mist Fiend nibbled on a monster corpse, the injuries on the Devil King's body quickly healed up. Furthermore, the broken devilish wing on its back returned to normal. For the first time, Li Yunmu witnessed the significance of transformation caused by divine blood. The objects obtained from the special dimensional box certainly couldn't be underestimated. After the 31st level, Mist Fiend had attained grade 50 in terms of strength. As it continued to gain more strength, the speed at which it matured slowed down, since it needed more powerful monsters to feast upon. After attaining the strength of a rainbow crystal layer, Mist Fiend became even more terrifying. It continued to lead the charge as far as the 39th level. Finally, after eating all the corpses on the 9 levels, a single rainbow light ignited on the Devil King's body. It had finally accumulated sufficient power to congeal a single rainbow light. But it was still far from reaching all 8 rainbow lights. Its strength finally fixed at grade 50 and didn't change. It was making rapid progress at the moment, and the target of congealing 8 rainbow lights was already within its sight. Just when Li Yunmu was advancing toward the 41st level, an earth-shattering matter occurred in the outside world, shaking all 6 continents. Bestial Sage, who had already become a domain sage and could summon formidable sage beasts, perished. This information swept through Earth like a great tsunami. A sage-level power occupied a major position on any continent, so what needed to be said about a domain sage one? How could people not feel extremely astonished at the fall of someone like that? Who was the culprit? Who could have killed senior domain sage? He could summon sage beasts, so he far surpassed ordinary domain sages. Apart from battle sages, there was no one who could alarm him. But no one knew how Bestial Sage had perished. It was only possible if a battle sage had made a move, so everyone entered a state of shock. Some battle sage had actually made a move? This sort of quasi-deity level existences usually didn't make any moves, because if they took any action, that would mean some great event which would affect all the 6 continents. Everyone on the 6 continents was talking about this extremely shocking event. Some said that Bestial Sage died at some historical ruins in the 7th dimension. Others claimed that he died at some extremely terrifying mythical region. There were also those who said he had been killed by some group of domain sages who had acted together because he was running around without any fear. If Li Yunmu would have received this information about the death of Bestial Sage, he would have certainly been stunned. Because he would have realized the origin of the Azure Dragon Pearl which was gifted to him by Battle Sage Vega. She had personally attacked and killed an unusually formidable senior domain sage in order to obtain the second component of Azure Dragon deity suit and had silenced him so as to prevent him from divulging the secret of Li Yunmu possessing 2 components of his supreme battlesuit. She had done all this just so that he accomplish the 2 tasks entrusted by her? If someone knew the truth about this matter and had some brain, they could instantly smell a hint of an extremely terrifying events to come, because Battle Sage Vega hadn't attacked for Li Yunmu but for the future of the entire central continent. Chapter 217, First Female Shadow. Bestial Sage's death was only the beginning. In less than half a day, another terrifying news spread: a loner flux sage immersed in cultivating in seclusion had died mysteriously at his residence deep within his mountain. This news was discovered 3 days after he had died when a flux sage who was his friend had paid him a visit. This flux sage's death was a homicide, and the heavenly star pearl which he had on him was taken by someone. Before long, a Nirvana flux master in the 6th dimension was also killed. His corpse was discovered after 6 or 7 hours, and by that time only his skeleton remained, the flesh having been eaten by dimensional beasts. His cape, which was a transcending sage tool, was never found. It was impossible for monsters to eat the transcending sage tool, and it was also impossible for them to have been destroyed. This Nirvana Flux Master was the 7th most powerful person in the 6th dimension, a Nirvana layer halted Fluxer. Otherwise it would have been impossible for him to keep a transcending sage tool, Tyrant Cape. But this time a violent death had met him because of it. Soon after, all the online platforms were flooded with news that not only on Earth but even on the 5th and 6th dimensions Flux disciples, Flux masters, and Flux sages were dying one after another. In a short while, the number of deaths grew by leaps and bounds. Even ordinary people sensed that there was something greatly unusual going on. They observed formidable experts from everywhere appearing simultaneously, all of them searching for precious treasures. These treasures were cultivation methods and battle skills which could swiftly increase their combat strength. The most noteworthy point was that the Fluxers who were killed were all lone wolves and didn't have any background. Some major powers who could access some information from even higher echelons discovered a little about the cause behind this continental battle. Many people were inwardly shaken. This time's continental battle was going to be extremely different from the ones in the past, and many people could sense the smell of great danger and enormous opportunities. As long as a power had certain capability, they would mobilize their full strength to fight for a qualification for their members. And at this time, H.A.C.K spread the news with great fanfare that H.A.C.K would formally challenge the Tower of Glory and would certainly crush the 70th level. H.A.C.K even sent 2 Flux sages to secretly protect him until he entered the tower. Swiftly, this event attracted the attention of most Fluxers and all sorts of powers. And not long after, the news of a Fluxer who was extremely sinister and belonged to the path of the devil having entered the Tower of Glory spread far and wide. Among the well-informed people, someone transmitted the news that 5th Dimension's second most powerful halted Fluxer devil had also entered the tower through some capital city. Instantly, a good number of Fluxers started moving. Apart from entering the tower, some famous halted Fluxers and Flux disciples suddenly entered some sect or joined some power which officially granted them a backer. The continent's major powers and sects also suddenly relaxed their conditions for entering and invited some of the formidable Flux disciples to join them. Li Yunmu, Li Yun, Li Feng, and the rest also weren't forgotten. Among them, the number of invitations sent out to Li Yunmu formed the highest pile. However, at this moment, Li Yunmu couldn't be distracted by the changes in the world outside. After cruising through another 10 levels, Fiend had feasted on the corpses of even more powerful monsters and finally congealed 4 rainbow lights. This had easily blown away the monsters of the 51st level. The strength of each monster on the 51st level and above had increased to 4 Rainbow Light Phantom Kings level. Although Fiend also possessed the same level of strength, it belonged to the race of Devil King class monsters. It had also been transformed by divine blood, which caused it to become even more terrifying and savage. 1 human, 1 monster, and 4 shadows quickly swept through the level and advanced forward. After reaching the 51st level, the drop rate of tower badges finally increased. This was because the levels above the 50th level were considered as Rainbow Crystal Fluxers territory. Li Yunmu had finally reached the level which was created for Fluxers 1 layer above his strength. But the increase in the drop rate of tower badges wasn't the only thing that changed. The earning rate of experience, ability as well as blood fiend points had also doubled. After more than half of the day passed, Li Yunmu finally killed his way to the 60th level's major threshold. The boss there was an 8 Rainbow Light Devil King. Li Yunmu decided to test the strength of his own Devil King who'd been transformed by divine blood and sent Fiend to attack alone. At this moment, after feasting on the corpses of dimensional beasts of the past 10 levels, the little Devil King had already matured to the peak, with 8 rainbow lights being emitted from his body, radiating around the whole level. When Li Yunmu looked at Fiend's attacks now, he was faintly reminded of the terrifying Devil King he had encountered in the King's true territory. The present little Devil King's strength had reached the same level as that of the Divine Blood Devil King. Similar strength as that 8 Rainbow Light Devil Kings, similar transformation from divine blood. The little Devil King's current strength in fact already surpassed Li Yunmu's own. Even if his tyrant body had attained the minor threshold and his world power had also increased greatly, according to the system's gathered data on combat strength, he wasn't an opponent to his Fiend Devil King. Only if his four shadows' combat strength was also counted could he battle on even grounds. Li Yunmu had to accept that Devil Kings transformed by divine blood were too abnormal. Mist Fiend attacked repeatedly with frightening speed and got rid of all the Phantom Kings. It then challenged the last opponent, which was an ordinary 8 Rainbow Light Devil King, and the outcome of the battle gave Li Yunmu a fright. The ordinary Devil King couldn't last 3 minutes under the fierce attack of Mist Fiend's fierce claws. The battle ended with Mist Fiend tearing the ordinary 8 Rainbow Light Devil King into shreds. This was the disparity between an ordinary Devil King class monster and a Devil King transformed by divine blood. When Li Yunmu had unknowingly met such a Devil King, if he hadn't used the 5 danger critical strikes at the crucial time, he would have really died. Li Yunmu stepped into the 61st level. There were only 10 levels left till his target. The 6th first level was even larger and could easily match a small town in size. It had 99 Phantom Kings, 9 Devil Kings, and 112 Rainbow Light King. It was the first time Li Yunmu encountered a genuine 12 Rainbow Light boss within the tower. Battle started. This time, Mist Fiend finally couldn't hold against the siege of 99 Phantom Kings and was constantly injured. Although it had defeated an ordinary Devil King within 3 minutes, but when 99 Phantom Kings attacked together, then even if it had undergone evolution due to divine blood and possessed extremely formidable strength, it would have still died if Li Yunmu hadn't intervened. Mist Fiend was very formidable, but the monsters at 61st level were even more formidable. Here, all of the monster were King Class 1s, and none of them were ordinary. Although they didn't possess divine blood, the fact that they were King Class creatures were enough to prove that they were extraordinary. After Li Yunmu and his 4 shadows entered the battle, this level was cleared without any major mishap. The 12 Rainbow Light boss monster was killed by the 4 shadows acting together in the end. With Li Yunmu's full battle capability, he could easily crush 12 Rainbow Light King dimensional beasts. Furthermore, the system notified him that the experience points accumulated by him had already crossed 400,000. Just this level alone had yielded him 110,000 experience points. Instantly, Li Yunmu was pleased beyond words. He immediately congealed the 5th shadow, and he named it Li Mei. He also constructed her an avatar at the dimensional battlefield. He set her height at 170 centimeters, then gave her a beautiful face and slender figure. Finally, after Li Yun, Li Feng, Li Tian, and Li Dai, his 5th shadow was established as a female shadow. The strength of each shadow was synchronized with Li Yunmu's strength, so when a new one was added to his group, his combat capability increased greatly. It had to be said that as his personal strength grew, each newly congealed shadow was born with increasingly more strength. 62nd level was next. Li Yunmu stormed to the 70th level with his confidence growing after clearing each level. Chapter 218, The Coming Out of Proud Sons and Daughters of Heavens. The majority of Fluxers were now paying attention to halted Fluxer Devil, Chao Tian Sex Li Qing, Extreme Devil Path Sex Yan Xing, and several other people who had challenged the tower at the same time and were now competing to see who reached the peak first. Chao Tian Sect had even made a public proclamation that Ye-Qing would certainly reach the 70th level in order to boost his fame. When Ye-Qing challenged the tower, the proud sons and daughters of heavens had decided to challenge the tower as well. From the looks of it, the other great sects and powers weren't willing to fall behind Chao Tian Sect and, one after another, dispatched their disciples to challenge the tower. There were 12 challengers in total. Besides Devil, Gongzhen, Tyrant Zhang, Ren Sujun, who were all rogue fluxers without any background, 8 major powers had sent their disciples to challenge the tower at the same time as Ye-Qing. The 3 largest betting companies opened their doors as fast as they could, creating wagers such as who would be the quickest among the 12 to ascend the Tower of Glory. Swiftly, numerous people were tempted into making a bet. Veteran gamblers even soon published some detailed information about the 12 people who were about to climb the tower. Among the 12, the person who was considered to have the greatest chance to win was surprisingly not Ye-Qing but Extreme Devil Path Sex Yan Xing. More than 30% of the bets favored him. The person who followed behind him was H.A.C.K, who had 20% of the bettors on his side. Behind him was independent fluxer Tyrant Zhang, who also had around 20% of the bets on him. As for the rest, all of them were favored to come out as winners by someone. Although according to public opinion they weren't as formidable as the three before them, this changed once the information compiled by veteran gamblers was made public. Those who were betting suddenly discovered that among the 11 people challenging the tower at the same time as H.A.C.K, there wasn't anyone who could be considered weak. Not one of them lacked strength, and in truth, all of them could be considered extremely tyrannical. The onlookers suddenly found out that among the Flux disciples who hadn't yet revealed themselves, there were many formidable people. Hey, whom did you bet on? I bet on Extreme Devil Path's Yansing and Chao Tian-Sek's Yeching. I calculated the odds and made my bets accordingly. I think I'll be able to make a small profit. I don't wish to lose all the money trying to make large money. Haha. You pig, these two people are hot commodities. But none of the 12 can be considered weak. All of them stand at the peak layer of Flux disciples. And you still think you won't suffer a loss? I hope you lose all the money. This elder brother, whom did you bet on? Someone asked in the forums. I bet on the rogue Fluxer Ren Sujun. Crap, tell me you didn't bet on her only because she is beautiful. She's a rogue Fluxer. The level she'll be able to reach will not depend solely on her personal strength, but also on the trump cards she has. Do you understand the meaning of this sentence? I won't say anything, it would be better if you just read through all the information available on her. She's an exceptional talent from 2 years ago, it's just that she likes to remain low-key. Dang, is no one among these 12 ordinary? This Ren Sujun has exceptional grade innate talent? From where did she appear? Haha, my bet is on elder sister Ling Shuang. Although she is a newly registered Fluxer from this year, she is the only disciple of Sword Sage. Same, I bet on Xiakyungxiu. Snow Temple's top disciple, the personal disciple of Snow Temple's Battle Sage. So what if they're disciples of Battle Sages? How long has it been since they had chosen to walk on this path? I won't bet based on such shallow thinking. My bet is on Devil. He's good at scheming, and I think he could be the dark horse. Are you people stupid? Why didn't you bet on the other half of the 2 holy daughters of Sea God? Qingyu is Hai Yu's little sister. You all have seen Hai Yu's strength, so you should know how many resources her sister would have. I bet on Rogue Fluxer from Desolate Continent, Tyrant Zhang. I heard he recently emerged as a new force to be reckoned with. I think he had some great fortuitous encounter, like inheriting the bloodline of some innately formidable beast. That cannot be. This Tyrant Zhang is so awesome. I will also bet on him. Desolate continents evolved humans can inherit bloodlines which make them naturally superior to others. Northern continent's Zhongshan Onling represents the 5th generation of a powerful clan. Zhongshan clan can cover the heavens over the northern continent with just a hand. Apart from him, all the others are just trash. Dang, why did only 2 newcomers from our central continent come to challenge the tower? Moreover, both of them are women, what about the men? Where did all the men go? Yes, Zhan Huia, Luo Tian, Wang Ming, Li Yunmu, why didn't they come to challenge the tower? You must know that these 4 of our central continent are very formidable. That's right. Zhan Huia is related to a transcending power. Luo Tian is the top Flux disciple of our central city. The 2 of them simply don't need to compete with Yeching. As for Wang Ming and Li Yunmu, they're both newcomers without many resources at their disposal, so they hadn't had the time to solidify their foundations. That's not true. I know that Li Yunmu has become extremely formidable recently. Only a few days ago he defeated the 6 elites of Chao Tian sect. To hell with the 6 elites. Yeching is the last boss of Chao Tian sect. Although Flame Devil's strength was pretty good, if you compare it with others from the 6 continents, he couldn't be considered as anything special. Li Yunmu defeating him with the other elites cannot be considered as anything. Li Yunmu is already a has-been. Many powerful people in the Flux disciple realm have recently shown themselves. I've received secret information that all of this is because of the continental battle. Wang Ming and Li Yunmu's strength isn't sufficient to compete at that level. Yes, the previous poster's words are correct. Let alone Wang Ming and Li Yunmu, even Ling Shuang and Shuekyungsu, who are the personal disciples of battle sages, don't have enough power for that, in my opinion. You're wrong. I've bet all my saving on Shuekyungsu. I heard that she possesses a heavenly world. Snow Temple is doing their best to nurture her. As the 12 challenged the tower, the people outside began to gather more and more information about them, and with the advent of online network, the information which was originally considered as secret could no longer remain such. In fact, the number of people who had decided to challenge the Tower of Glory at the same time as Yeching wasn't just limited to 11. However, the rest lacked the qualifications or didn't possess the strength to enter the discussion, or make the 3 largest companies offer bets on them. From this, it could be clearly seen that each of the 12 people had extremely formidable strength. As everyone began to learn more about the challengers, they couldn't help but keep getting more stunned at the fact that none of these people seemed weak. Many people thus invested heavily in an attempt to make a fortune from their bets. It had only been an hour since the wagers had first been offered, but the amount of money bet already crossed 100 billion. To make everything clear, the progress of each of the 12 people would be displayed publicly by the 3 largest betting companies. Extreme Devil Path Sexianxing was the first person to clear the 40th level at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeching followed closely behind him, while the third person was surprisingly not Tyrant Zhang but Ren Sujun. The fourth person who cleared the 40th level gave everyone a fright. Surprisingly, it was Shuekyungsu. The reason why everyone was surprised was because she was this year's rookie Flux disciple. She had started building her foundation quite recently, yet she was the 4th person to clear the 40th level. Apparently the information obtained by some people through bribery was quite correct. Shuekyungsu possessed her own heavenly world. It was clear that Snow Temple was nurturing her with great care. The 5th person was Devil. This person was considered a dark horse. He was the second most powerful halted fluxer of 5th dimension, yet an independent fluxer who didn't have many reserves at his disposal. Still, he surprisingly was the 5th person. As for Lin Shuang, she was at the 11th position, the second to last person. Chapter 219, 2 Solitary Lions. After the results of the first wave came, many people were forced to revise their bets and poured in large sums of money once again. Among them, the bets on Shuekyungsu rose quickly. As for Ling Shuang, she gradually disappeared from the limelight. At noon, the results of the 50th level began to trickle in. Among the 12 people, the first person to clear the 50th level was still Extreme Devil Path Sexianxing. As for Yeching, who was previously at 2nd spot, even his shadow couldn't be seen. The second person was Tyrant Zhang. He, who was previously at the 9th spot, had actually rushed to the 2nd spot. According to rumors, he once had a fortuitous encounter and inherited a formidable bloodline. When rushing to the 50th level, he must have finally put it to use. In a short period of time, many people once again changed their bets, this time to Tyrant Zhang. The odds offered on the 12 challengers were constantly changing based on the news that came out. One thing that remained was that Shuekyungsu was attracting more and more attention. She rose to the 4th position while Ren Sujun was demoted to the 5th. Yeching, on the other hand, had dropped to the 8th position, which instantly attracted the ridicule of fluxers who were aware of the true facts. They naturally knew about his so-called power. It was only the 50th level, but the constant increase in difficulty already proved that his strength was insufficient. This time, Chao Tian sect had really suffered a great humiliation. They had publicized the news that Yeching will challenge the tower with great fanfare, yet the outcome was that it had only helped to improve the reputation of others. However, the upper echelons of H.A.D.W sect were extremely calm and composed. Humph, among the 11 people, at least 7 of them have come to disrupt the plans of our H.A.D.W sect. Seems like other continents have already figured out our sect's secret plan. So what if they know? They learned about it too late. Whatever they do, it'll be insufficient to stop us. Man Tian, Zhan Huia, Hai Yu, Zihanbei, all of them had challenged the tower long ago and almost exhausted their tower badges by now. Relying just on Xiekungxiu, Zhongshan Onling, or Tyrant Zhang at the last moment won't be sufficient to stop our plans. Haha, after this, as long as our H.A.D.W sect obtains the refining pagoda, we'll be able to greatly disrupt the waters across all the 6 continents. H.A.D.W sect was very calm since it had been preparing for a long time for this day. If it wasn't for an anomaly like Li Yunmu who had retrieved the void disk, it would have gotten its hands on the 6th transcending treasure long ago. The conditions required to exchange for void disk were lower compared to ones for refining pagoda. The 3 components only required one to clear the 25th level to gain the qualifications to obtain them. Furthermore, with Yeching's rainbow crystal layer strength, as long as he cleared the 50th level, he would obtain several times the required amount of tower badges. However, who could have known that Li Yunmu, who was at the lowest level of cultivation, would clear the 25th level in exchange for the void disk with the minimum number of tower badges required, thus destroying H.A.D.W sect's work of several years. He then even went and accepted Li Qinghong as his follower, obviously learning of H.A.D.W sect's secret, which was the main reason why it hated him to the core. That didn't concern H.A.D.W sect anymore, though. It wasn't yet too late, there was still some chance. These days, the entire H.A.D.W sect had been engaged in preparing Yeching. It had absolute confidence that he would clear the 70th level and obtain the final component refining pagoda. And they were close to achieving that now. Although the overlords of the other continents had uncovered H.A.D.W sect's secret, it was too late to it. Among the 11 people, the only threats were Yanxing of Extreme Devil Path and Zhongshan Onling. After this, our H.A.D.W sect will become a transcending power and we will gain a spot for the continental battle, a flux sage of H.A.D.W sect said arrogantly. H.A.D.W sect was certain of their success. It had used up all of its resources and trump cards on Yeching. 6 hours later, in the evening, the first person to clear the 60th level was published. This name at the first gave everyone a huge fright. Yeching. Like a hurricane, he had advanced to the first position from the 8. Impossible. At this moment, many people realized that H.A.D.W sect had prepared for this long ago. Those who had sufficient brains understood that Yeching had used the means at his disposal to the extreme. Even Yanxing, who had taken the first position twice in a row, was surprisingly unable to suppress him and was overtaken. Xiekungxiu, however, seemed to be becoming more and more formidable, for she had achieved the 3rd position. The 4th position was also an upset. It wasn't Tyrant Zhang, and neither was it Ren Sujun or Zhongshan Onling, but Devil. He had remained low-key the whole time, but had jumped to the 4th position in the last 10 levels. The next wave was the last wave for betting, but Yeching coming out first had made the results obvious. Even ordinary people could see it. This was H.A.D.W sect's vicious and outstanding scheme for which it had been preparing for a long time. Without hesitating, many people heavily bet on Yeching, however, it was too late now, the odds on him were too high. As it became more and more clear that he was destined to win, the winnings on him became frighteningly low. However, not everyone followed the trend. The odds on Yeching were the highest, thus Yanxing, Sun Qingxiu and Devil had become the 2nd most popular choices. Zhongshan Onling, who was from the 5th most powerful family on northern continent, had completely disappeared from the limelight. As for Ling Shuang, she had turned out to be pretty impressive. In the last 10 levels, which had been the hardest so far, she surprisingly had risen from the 11th position to grab the 7th spot. It wasn't over yet since there were 10 more levels. Those who have been keeping low-key will certainly show their strength in the last 10 level. S.H.A.D.W is certain to have some secret trump card on her. But there is something strange about this devil. He's a lone fluxer, so how could he grab the 4th spot? In Ocean City, Man Tian, Hai Yu, Green Wolf, and the rest of their group had been paying close attention to the challengers. From their side, there was Qing Yu, but she hadn't been able to catch any attention. Qing Yu was Hai Yu's blood sister. Both of them were considered as the holy daughters of Sea God. Not only were they beautiful, their personal strength as well as latent talent were also shocking. Moreover, as they were from Sea God's people, they were evolved humans which provided them an innate dominance over others. However, Qing Yu was the youngest among this group and had remained low-key, escaping everyone's attention. Man Tian and the others had just sent her to gain first-hand experience of Yeching's strength. At some barren region in the wilderness of the 5th dimension where terrifying dimensional beasts roamed, S.H.A.D.W was sitting on top of a rock. Over his head, 2-dimensional space eyes were cruising around. Very good. Zhongshan Onling and Yan Xing also couldn't help but reveal themselves. Apparently this time's continental battle won't be so quiet, he muttered to himself. Zhang Huia is troubled by something, so this year's Central Continent's representative will be Luo Tian or that newcomer S.H.A.D.W. Based on what I see, Snow Palace has nurtured her with great care. I see flesh and jade bones, interesting. What was astonishing was that S.H.A.D.W, who had been a loner in the 5th dimension for who knew how long, had a companion standing by his side. And they were wearing a copper mask. Don't worry, GEA, with the two of us joining hands this time, we don't need to fear anyone. Although they have enormous reserves, in front of absolute power, everything is fleeting clouds. We must obtain 2 spots in this continental war. GEA, who was emitting a terrifying presence, met eyes with S.H.A.D.W and smiled faintly. If the outer world's major powers learned that this person nicknamed GEA had joined hands with S.H.A.D.W, they would become very worried. S.H.A.D.W was no longer a solitary lion but had joined hands with another powerful lion. This was an unimaginable change in the situation. Chapter 220, Central Continent's Li Yunmu. After clearing the 60th level of the Tower of Glory, the real test began. The stronger maintained their position while the weaker were eliminated. Even the 12 proud children of heavens viewed as the strongest by the 3 largest betting companies began to face more difficulties after reaching this stage. They had to invest a great deal of effort and sweat to clear the next levels. Each successive one was a closely fought contest. Time continued to pass, and afternoon descended into dusk. The people who had bet heavily were keeping a close watch on the latest rankings. At 5 in the morning the next day, the first person who crossed the 65th level was announced. Yeching. It was still Yeching from Chaotian sect who was having the last laugh. Stepping into the 70th level didn't only test a person's combat strength. Their weapons and other tools, flux cultivation battle skills, secret techniques, and even the resources at their disposal were also tested. If someone didn't have that, how could they dare to claim that they would certainly clear the 70th level? In the Flux Disciple realm, the main thing tested was whether they had a firm and enormous foundation. Yeching was disdained by many, but behind him stood the mammoth named Chaotian sect which had prepared for this event for a long time. Thus, everyone suddenly discovered that in the last 10 levels, Yeching seemed to be gradually distancing himself from the others. The second person to step into the 65th level was late by a full hour compared to Yeching, reaching the target at 6 in the morning. But no one had expected this person. It wasn't S.H.A.D.W or Yan Xing, it was Zhongshan Onling. Dang, the latecomer stands above. One stone creates 1,000 ripples. All the spectators felt great regret. Northern Continent's 5th largest family, Zhongshan clan, finally hammered the meaning of resources and power of a major clan into the mind of all the spectators. But what shocked all of the spectators was that barely a few seconds later, Tower of Glory made another announcement. S.H.A.D.W came after Zhongshan Onling and obtained the 3rd position. Everyone exclaimed at this newcomer female Fluxer's power. She was really worthy of being called a disciple of a battle sage. She was just too frightening. However, it wasn't over yet. Not even a minute had passed since S.H.A.D.W reached the aim when the fourth person ascended past the 65th level, and it was Ling Shuang. It was actually Ling Shuang. A person whom no one had expected. She was only half a minute late compared to S.H.A.D.W and only a minute later than Zhongshan Onling. These three people had surprisingly reached more or less at the same time. The difference between them was minimal, and the spectators were reminded the meaning of the words battle sage's disciple. S.H.A.D.W and Ling Shuang were both rookie fluxers, but they were barely slower than Zhongshan Onling. Extreme Devil Path Sexian Xing, one of the most popular candidates for winning this competition, came fifth. His outstanding name stood forth among the most formidable Flux disciples, but he had surprisingly been pushed this low. The sixth person was Ren Sujun. The seventh person was Devil. No one had expected him to reach this stage. It completely betrayed everyone's expectations. Although he was the second most formidable halted Fluxer, he was inferior compared to the first rank Zihanbei. Yet that didn't stop Devil from climbing up this high. The eighth person was Tyrant Zhang. Apparently, even if he'd had a fortuitous encounter, his foundation was inferior. He probably hadn't yet had enough time to solidify it into something better than his original one. As for the ninth person, everyone kept waiting for them until 9 in the morning. At that time, news came that Gongzanangong had retired at the 64th level, renouncing the competition. After leaving the tower, he was almost caught by his enemies, but he had been prepared and was able to escape to the 5th dimension. Reportedly, he had used a life-saving treasure. All halted Fluxers had many methods to save their lives, let alone Gongzanangong himself, who was a famous one. The spectators were in a commotion. The third most powerful halted Fluxer had surprisingly been unable to reach the 65th level. From this, it could be clearly seen that the difficulty increased greatly with each successive level. At 10 in the morning, Qing Yu finally obtained the 9th rank. This youngest competitor, the holy daughter of Sea God, who had been calmly competing without any eye-catching movements, also ascended to the 65th level. In a short while, many people looked into Qing Yu's origins and learned to their surprise that she was one of the Sea God's 2 moons and Hai Yu's younger sister. Instantly, they understood that this proud daughter of heaven's reason for being part of this contest couldn't be simple. Only 9 of the 12 people reached the 65th level. The other 3, including Gongzanangong, withdrew from the Tower of Glory after stopping at the 64th level. Apparently, all the formidable experts cherished their lives very much and had a clear understanding of their abilities. They hadn't let their fame get to their heads and lost their lives inside the tower. The final ranking had already come out. Everyone in the 6 continents found that the atmosphere had become quite repressive because the moment of truth was just around the corner. And it was dealing with the most difficult levels of the tower. Chao Tiansek's preparations are perfect. Yeching is moving in the first place, leaving all the others behind in dust. Who could stop him? Yes, take a look at the odds on him. All the betting companies have adjusted the odds of him winning to the highest. Even if you bet on him now, there won't be much profit. Sure enough, all people knew that Yeching possessed formidable resources and some trump card. Chao Tiansek had been preparing for a long time, so he would certainly be the first one to clear the 70th level. No one could stop him. The smile of victory on the faces of Chao Tiansek's members was becoming brighter with each passing instant. The situation was in their favor. After today, Yeching's name would rock the 6 continents, and at the same time, after clearing the 70th level, the final transcending sage treasure will also fall in his hands. Although the other continents could clearly see Chao Tiansek's wild ambitions, they had discovered them a little too late. The hastily arranged disciples without much preparation, how could they stop Yeching? As time continued to pass and it was close to 3 in the afternoon, everyone calculated that Yeching was about to clear the 70th level anytime now. However, at this moment, Tower of Glory suddenly announced 3 successive notifications to the 6 continents. Congratulations to Central Continent's Li Yunmu for clearing the 70th level of Tower of Glory with a cultivation of golden crystal layer. You are bestowed with supreme glory in this world. The notifications from the Fluxer Association's Tower of Glory vibrated the communication device of every Flux disciple, and many people subconsciously thought that H.A.C.K had finally won. Those who had bet on him at the start began to shout with excitement, "What a fucking profit!" However, after a moment, a thought struck them. Why had Fluxer Association sent them 3 notifications? It was completely irrational. Each of the 12 people had a cultivation of rainbow crystal layer. Even if they cleared the 70th level, at most there would be 2 notifications. So why was the news repeated 3 times? Some people who had managed to calm down looked at the notification carefully, and their expressions became very strange. Li Yunmu, it was Li Yunmu. They looked again, and it was still Li Yunmu. The name didn't change even after they checked the message for the 3rd time. It still remained Li Yunmu. And not H.A.C.K. F***CK. Instantly, all the people who were paying close attention to the contest felt as if a formidable dimensional beast had trampled across their heart. The first person to cross the 70th level of Tower of Glory was surprisingly not H.A.C.K, nor anyone else from the 11 others, but a complete outsider Li Yunmu.